ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ, ಸ್ವಾಗತ ಸುಸ್ವಾಗತ. ಮೊಟ್ಟ ಮೊದಲನೆಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಯುಗಾದಿ ಹಬ್ಬದ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಶುಭಾಶಯಗಳನ್ನ ಹೇಳಕ್ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಈ ಶುಭಕೃತ ನಾಮ ಸಂವತ್ಸರದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಹರ್ಷದಾಯಕವಾಗಿರಲಿ, ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಆನಂದ, ನೆಮ್ಮದಿ, ಆರೋಗ್ಯ ಕೊಡ್ಲಿ ಅಂತ ನಾನು ದೇವರಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಾರ್ಥಿಸ್ತೀನಿ. ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಟ್ರೈ ವ್ಯಾಲಿ ಕನ್ನಡ ಸಂಘದ ವೆಬಿನಾರ್ ಏನು ಹಮ್ಮಿಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. ಎರಡು ಅನೌನ್ಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ನ ಹೇಳಕ್ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಮೊದಲನೇದಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಟ್ರೈ ವ್ಯಾಲಿ ಕನ್ನಡ ಸಂಘದ್ದು TVK ಸಂಘ ಆಪ್ ನ ನಾವು ಲಾಂಚ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಅದನ್ನ ನೀವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಡೌನ್ಲೋಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ನಂಬಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ ಪಕ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿ tvksanghA.org ವೆಬ್ಸೈಟ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಅದರ ಲಿಂಕ್ಗಳಿದೆ, ಡೌನ್ಲೋಡ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಬಳಸಿ. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿನ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಈಗ 2 ವಾರಗಳಿಂದ ನಾವು ಕ್ವಿಜ್ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಕೂಡ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ನೀವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಸಿಪೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಭಾಗವಹಿಸಿ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು. ಮತ್ತೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆಲ್ರಿಗೂ ನಮ್ಮ TVKS ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಇಮೇಲ್ಗಳು ಬರ್ತಿರೋ ಹಾಗೆ ಯುಗಾದಿ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮನ ನಾವು ಓಪನ್ ಏರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಯಾಂಡ್ರಮೋನ್ ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ಪಾರ್ಕ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಶನಿವಾರ ಏಪ್ರಿಲ್ 16ನೇ ತಾರೀಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇವತ್ತಿಗೆ 2 ವಾರಕ್ಕೆ ಹಮ್ಮಿಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಅದರ ಫುಡ್ RSVP ಫುಡ್ ಟಿಕೆಟ್ ಸೇಲ್ಸ್ ನ ನಾವು 8ನೇ ತಾರೀಕಿಂದ ಪ್ರಾರಂಭ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. ದೇರ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಎ ಲಿಮಿಟೆಡ್ ಕ್ವಾಂಟಿಟಿ ಆಫ್ ಫುಡ್ ಟಿಕೆಟ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಸೋಲ್ಡ್. ಆದಷ್ಟು ಬೇಗ 8ನೇ ತಾರೀಕು ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ ನೀವು ಪರ್ಚೇಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಅರೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೂ ಅನುಕೂಲ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ನೀವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಬಂದು 16ನೇ ತಾರೀಕು ಬಂದು ಸಿಹಿಯಾದ ಭೋಜನ ಉಂಡು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಸುಮಾರು ಒಂದು 60ರಿಂದ 90 ನಿಮಿಷದಷ್ಟು, 1ರಿಂದ 1.5 ಗಂಟೆಯಷ್ಟು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಹಮ್ಮಿಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಅದನ್ನ ಬಂದು ನೀವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಭಾಗವಹಿಸ್ತೀರಾ ಅಂತ ನಾನು ನಂಬಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಸೊ ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಸ್ವಾಗತ ಸುಸ್ವಾಗತ. ನಮ್ಮ ಈ ನಾವು ಹಮ್ಮಿಕೊಂಡಿರೋ ಅಂತ ಈ ನಮ್ಮ ಗ್ರ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸರ್ಸ್ಗೆ ವೆಬಿನಾರ್ ಮೂಲಕ ನಾವು ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಇದು 2ನೇ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ. ಇದರ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿನ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಮುಂದುವರಿಸೋದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ನಮ್ಮ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟಿಂಗ್ ಟೀಮ್ ಎಂಟರ್ಪ್ರೈಸಿಂಗ್ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ರೋಹಿತ್ ನಲ್ಲಪೆಟ್ಟಗೆ ನಾನಿವಾಗ ಐ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ ಇಟ್ ಓವರ್ ಟು ಹಿಮ್. ರೋಹಿತ್, ಓವರ್ ಟು ಯು.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಫಾರ್ ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಆನ್ ಎ ಸ್ಯಾಟರ್ಡೇ. ಎಲ್ಲರ ಟೈಮ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಮುಖ್ಯ. ಆದರೆ ಈ ರಿಯಲ್ ಎಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ವೆಬಿನಾರ್ ಬಂದಿರೋದಕ್ಕೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. ಕೆಲವು ಕ್ವಿಕ್ ಹೌಸ್ ಕೀಪಿಂಗ್ ನೋಟ್ಸ್. ಆದಷ್ಟು ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ತಮ್ಮ ಮುಖವನ್ನು ತೋರಿಸ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ಲೀಸ್ ಟರ್ನ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಕ್ಯಾಮ್ರಾ. ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಫನ್. ಒಬ್ರ ಮುಖ ಒಬ್ರು ನೋಡಿ ತುಂಬಾ ದಿವಸ ಆಗಿದೆ. ನೀವೆಲ್ಲ ಕ್ಯಾಮ್ರಾ ಟರ್ನ್ ಆನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಹೆಲೋ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಮತ್ತೆ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲೂ ನಿಮಗೆ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ಸ್ ಬಂದಲ್ಲಿ ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಚಾಟ್ ವಿಂಡೋನಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕ್ರಿ. ನಮ್ಮ ಟೀಮ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಆ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ಸ್ ನ ಸರ್ಫೇಸ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಇನ್ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ ದ ವೆಬಿನಾರ್ ನಾವು ಒಂದು ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ತಗೊಂಡು ಕಹೂಟ್ ಗೇಮ್ಸ್ ನ ಆಡಿಸ್ತೀವಿ. ಆಸ್ ಯೂಶುವಲ್ ಕಹೂಟ್ ಆ್ಯಪ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ, ಅಥವಾ ಕಹೂಟ್ URL ತೋರಿಸ್ತೀವಿ. ಆ ಕಹೂಟ್ URL ಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ನೀವು ಕಹೂಟ್ URL ನ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಚಾಟ್ ವಿಂಡೋಲ್ ಕೂಡ ಹಾಕ್ತೀನಿ. ಅದನ್ನ ಕಾಪಿ ಮಾಡಿ ಆ ಗೇಮ್ ನ ಆಟ ಆಡ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಕೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಅದನ್ನ ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ರಿಯಲ್ ಎಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಇವಾಗ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ನಾವು ತಗೋಬೇಕಾ, ಮನೆ ಮಾರ್ಬೇಕಾ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದ್ ಕಡೆ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾ ಅಂತ. ಈ ಒಂದು ಕಾಂಪ್ಲೆಕ್ಸ್ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ನ ತುಂಬಾ ಡೇಟಾ ಸಹಿತವಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮವರೇ ಆದ ಗಿರೀಶ್ ಬ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಳೂರ್ ಅವರು ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಓವರ್ ಟು ಗಿರೀಶ್ ಬ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಳೂರ್. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಗಿರೀಶ್ ಅವರೇ, ನಮ್ಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದಕ್ಕೆ.
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ರೋಹಿತ್, ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ರಮೇಶ್ ಮತ್ತು ವಿಠಲ. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ TVKS ಸಮಿತಿ ಕಾರ್ಯಕರ್ತರು ಮತ್ತು ಮೆಂಬರ್ಸ್, ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ಈ ಒಂದು ಫೆಸ್ಟಿವಲ್ ವೀಕೆಂಡ್ ದಿವಸ ಟೈಮ್ ತಗೊಂಡು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಅಮೂಲ್ಯವಾದ ಟೈಮನ್ನು ನನ್ನ ಒಂದು ವೆಬಿನಾರ್ಗೆ ಕೊಡ್ತಿರೋದಕ್ಕೆ ತುಂಬ ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ಸ್. ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ನಾನು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು ಟೈಮ್ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಏನೇ ಹೇಳಬೇಕಾದ್ರೂ ಈ ವೆಬಿನಾರಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ಬರೋ ರೀತಿ ನಾನು ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಭಾಳಷ್ಟು ವಿಚಾರಣೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ದೀನಿ ವೆಬಿನಾರಲ್ಲಿ. ಇದು 1 ಅವರಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡುವಂಥ ಟೈಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಆದ್ರೂ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ವಿಷಯ ಇದೆಯೋ ಅದು ತಿಳಿಸ್ತೀನಿ. ಬಟ್ ಬಿಯಾಂಡ್ ದಟ್ ನಿಮಗೆ ಅಡಿಷ್ನಲ್ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಬೇಕಿತ್ತು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಐ ಆಮ್ ಆಲ್ವೇಸ್ ಅವೈಲೇಬಲ್. ಎಂಡಲ್ಲಿ ನನ್ನ ಫೋನ್ ನಂಬರು, ಇಮೇಲ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಸಂಪರ್ಕಿಸಿ. ಐ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಅವೈಲೇಬಲ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಯುವರ್ ರಿಸೋರ್ಸ್ ಟು ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಆಲ್ ಯುವರ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್. ಹ್ಯಾವಿಂಗ್ ಸೆಡ್ ದಟ್, ಒಂದು ಸಣ್ಣ ಡಿಸ್ಕ್ಲೈಮರ್. ನಾನು ಭಾಳಷ್ಟು ವಿಷಯಗಳು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ವೆಬಿನಾರಲ್ಲಿ. ರಿಯಲ್ ಎಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡೋ ವಿಚಾರ, ಅದನ್ನು ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ದಿ ಲೈಸೆನ್ಸ್ ಟು ಗಿವ್ ಅಡ್ವೈಸ್. ಬಟ್ ಈ ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಬ್ರಾಡ್ ಆಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಐ ಮೇ ಟಚ್ ಅಪ್ ಆನ್ ಏರಿಯಾಸ್ ವಿಚ್ ಆರ್ ನಾಟ್ ರಿಯಲ್ ಎಸ್ಟೇಟ್, ಮೇ ಬಿ ಅಕೌಂಟಿಂಗ್ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್, ಮೇ ಬಿ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಇನ್ ಅದರ್ ಏರಿಯಾಸ್, ಸಮ್ ಲೀಗಲ್ ಆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ಸು ಇರ್ಬೋದು. ಅದರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾನು ಏನಾದರೂ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅದನ್ನು ನನ್ನ ಒಪಿನಿಯನ್ ಅಂತ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ, ನನ್ನ ಸಲಹೆ ಅಂತ ತಗೋಬೇಡಿ. ಇಫ್ ಯು ವಾಂಟ್ ಅಡ್ವೈಸ್ ಆನ್ ದಟ್, ಯು ವುಡ್ ಬೆಟರ್ ಬಿ ಆಫ್ ಕನ್ಸಲ್ಟಿಂಗ್ accountant or a CFA or a legal authority for any legal related issues. With that being said, ನಾನು ಶುರು ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮನ ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ ಮೂಲಕ. ಸೊ ಐ ಹೋಪ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಿದೆ ಅನಿಸುತ್ತೆ, ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ? ಓಕೆ, ಗುಡ್. ಆಲ್ರೈಟ್, ಸೊ ಲೆಟ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್. ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ಸು, ಅಜೆಂಡಾ ಇವತ್ತು ಏನು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ 3 ಟಾಪ್ ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ಸ್. ಒಂದು, ಈಗ ಬೇ ಏರಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ರಿಯಲ್ ಎಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಹೇಗಿದೆ, ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್, ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಒನ್ ಟಾಪಿಕ್. ಎರಡನೇದು, ಒಂದು ಮನೆ ಅಥವಾ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ಟಿ ತೊಗೊಳ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಬಯರ್ ಯಾವ ಒಂದು ಪ್ಲ್ಯಾನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಥವಾ ಯಾವುದರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಅವರ ಫೋಕಸ್ ಹೋಗಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಸೆಕ್ಷನಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಮೂರನೇದಾಗಿ, ಮನೆ ಮಾರಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಆ್ಯಸ್ ಎ ಸೆಲ್ಲರ್ ಯಾವುದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ. ನಂತರ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮುಗಿದ ಮೇಲೆ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಆನ್ಸರ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಇದ್ರ ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ರೋಹಿತ್ ಅವರು ಕಹೂಟ್ ಗೇಮನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ನಾನು ಆ ಸಮಯ ಬಂದಾಗ ರೋಹಿತ್ಗೆ ಹ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಓವರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಓಕೆ, ನಾನು ಮಾತಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ ಮಾತಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ, ಬಟ್ ನಂದು ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಕನ್ನಡ ಕ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಲೀಷು, ಸೊ ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಕ್ಷಮಿಸಿ, ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ಗೋ ಆನ್ ಟು ದ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಟಾಪಿಕ್, ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಆಫ್ ರಿಯಲ್ ಎಸ್ಟೇಟ್. ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಆಫ್ ರಿಯಲ್ ಎಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಮುನ್ನ let me explain how real estate works in terms of price. ಸೊ ನಾನೀಗ ನಿಮಗೆ ತೋರಿಸ್ತಿರೋ ಈ ಒಂದು ಗ್ರಾಫು 2007 ಇಂದ 2020 ಒಳಗಡೆ, ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ ದೋಸ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್ಸ್, ಆನ್ ಎ ಕ್ವಾರ್ಟರ್ಲಿ ಬೇಸಿಸ್ ಸಪ್ಲೈ ಮತ್ತು ಡಿಮ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಹೇಗಿತ್ತು, ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಹೌ ಡಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಫಂಡಮೆಂಟ್ಲಿ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಅಸ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ದಿ ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಈ ಗ್ರಾಫಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಲೈಟ್ ಗ್ರೀನ್ ಬಾರ್ಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ನೋಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀರೋ, ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ the supply of homes. ಇದು on a quarterly basis. Each pair of bar lines are quarterly numbers. And the dark green bar ಏನು ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಿದೆಯೋ, this is the demand. ಅಂದರೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಮನೆ ಆ ಕ್ವಾರ್ಟರ್ಲಿ ಸೇಲ್ ಆಯಿತು ಅಂತ. ಈ ಲೈಟ್ ಗ್ರೀನ್ ಅಗೇನ್ is the number of homes that were available in that quarter for sale, or that came onto the market for sale. So this is 2007, before the crash of housing market, or around the time it crashed. Then let's go down to the right hand side. ಬಲಗಡೆ ಹೋದರೆ you see this, I got data up to 2020 ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ this is where you see the graph, supply and demand. So first thing to note here is, let's look at the dark green bar, which is demand, the number of homes that got sold on a quarterly basis. If you look at it, variations ಇದೆ, quarter to quarter, up and down ಇದೆ, but the difference in variation is not significant compared to how supply of homes has changed prior to 2008 and during the recession and after recession. ಇದನ್ನ ನೀವು ಗಮನಿಸಿದ್ರೆ, supply of homes have varied numbers in terms of differences between how it was at one point to how it is now. ನೀವು ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಿರೋ ಪ್ರಕಾರ 2008 ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಕ್ರ್ಯಾಶ್ ಆದಾಗ ಪ್ರೈಸಸ್ ಕೇಮ್ ಡೌನ್ ಸಿಗ್ನಿಫಿಕೆಂಟ್ಲಿ. ಓಕೆ, ನಾವು if you can see the last 2 years especially, but even before 2020, before COVID, the prices were high, significantly different market than what it was in 2008. What's the big difference? The big difference between 2008 crash and now is actually the supply, not necessarily the demand. Demand has changed, but not significantly. As the supply increases, the number of homes are more than the prices fall. So that is the one key point I want to emphasize before I talk about the current state of real estate market. Is supply is the one which is making a difference in the price as well as how the market behaves. So ಈ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಗ್ರಾಫ್ ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ತಿರೋದು, ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಡೇಟಾ, ಸೇಮ್ ಸಪ್ಲೈ ಅಂಡ್ ಡಿಮ್ಯಾಂಡ್, ಬಟ್ ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಫಾರ್ ಎ ಬ್ರೀಫ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ 2020 January up until February of this year. And this is a combined data for Alameda and Contra Costa County. ಈಗ ಮುಂಚೆ ತೋರಿಸಿದ ಗ್ರಾಫು Alameda Contra Costa County's combined data. So this is also same thing. Now if you look at this graph, you can see the blue line is the supply and the red one is the demand over a period of months. So ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಏನು ನಿಮಗೆ ಹೇಳಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, let's look at the absolute number of supply in the last 2 years. The most we had was close to 4,000 units in the two counties combined, most 4,000 units. Let's go back to this previous graph. When it was a buyer's market, when it was recession, what is the number of units we used to see? More than 12,000, 13,000, 14,000. You see, number of units wise, supply was more than like 3 times what it is today. So today the supply is in this range, like 4,000 units, range, right? So given what I told you about supply and demand, how the prices were low in 2008 and now, definitely today's supply is significantly low. So iduna almost everybody, you have seen how the prices have gone up and is continuing to go up. And the main key reason is low supply. And the next thing to observe graphically is the demand, the red bar. You can see if the supply is low, andre a particular month alli the number of homes sold tries to match up to that. Supply increase agutte anta idkolli. Let's look at July. Then the number of homes sold also increases. What does this tell us? It tells us buyers are just waiting for homes to come. ಮನೆಗಳು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಬಂದಂಗೆ they are going and grabbing the house. So supply ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆದಂಗೆಲ್ಲ there are buyers, enough buyers to go and grab the house. So that is exactly why prices are going up, because there are enough buyers in the line waiting for the homes to come to buy. And then what we don't see in this demand bar is these are only homes that got sold. But behind each house that got sold, on average, there could be 10 buyers who had put offers. We don't see that number in this graph. So the demand is much more significant than what you see in this graph. Okay. So another data to look at to see how the current market is. So what illi ಏನು ನಿಮಗೆ ಕಾಣ್ ಬರ್ತಿರೋದಂದ್ರೆ, there is a company which does this real estate market data analysis. And for the sake of discussion, you consider these numbers or this line as the temperature of the market. Okay, the higher the number, the more hot the market is, real estate market is. And this graph nimge ತೋರಿಸ್ತಿರೋದು, it is for the 94582 zip code. Okay, single family homes. So this number goes from 0 to 100. So the higher the number, the hotter the market is. So today we are somewhere here close to 100 in 94582. I believe this is around 94 or something number. Okay, 100 is the highest, which means peak hot. Okay, and let's look at a period when the market was a little bit less hot and buyers were able to get homes relatively easily. That was happening in 2019. In 2019, if you look at the same number in 94582, it was somewhere between 40 to 60, the temperature. Okay, today it is around 94. Okay, that again gives another indication of what is the current market. And the third parameter to look at is inventory of homes. This is again 94582 zip code. You can see this is where historically, if you look going back to April 2019, today we are inventory of homes is here. These are single family homes. It's right here at the bottom. And again, 2019 only, when the market was much better for buyers, look at the inventory of homes, much higher compared to where we are today. So all the 3 things I discussed today about the current state indicates that the market is very hot, and the key reason is supply, because supply is low. There is enough demand all the time. All right. The question is, okay, supply low anta ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ, demand high ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. Why the supply is low? Why the demand is so high, right? There has to be a reason, right? I can't just holistically say supply is low, that is why the price is high. Why? Well, Bay Area traditionally has been lagging in new construction. They are not able to provide enough homes for the kind of demand we have. Forget about COVID barely early. It doesn't matter. It has been low. It has not been able to meet up with the demand. So that is one reason. But what I call as a COVID boost, not the vaccine type, but the boost to the real estate happened when people had to work from home for a long period of time. ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಜನ ಬಯರ್ಸ್, ಅಂಡ್ ನನ್ನ ಓನ್ ಪರ್ಸನಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೀರಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ, ದೇ ವರ್ ಲಿವಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ಸ್ಮಾಲ್ ಅಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, both husband and wife working, and both are on Zoom call. Kids are doing online school and they are on their computer and they are probably talking, screaming, whatever it is. COVID ಶುರುವಾದಾಗ March of 2020, initially nobody knew what it means to everybody in terms of lifestyle or long-term. They were okay to deal with it for a few weeks. But when they realized this is not going to be few weeks, they have to deal with this for a long period, then it became hard, okay, in a small space to live with all the 4, or if you have 2 kids, all the 4 people living there with the computers on. So they became desperate to get larger space. Okay, fine. They all had a need. They needed larger space. Just because I need a larger space, it doesn't mean I can go and buy a house. Well, what enabled them to buy those homes? They had a need, but what enabled them? Well, affordability was very high. Andre, you can easily buy a house given the following factors. One is low interest rate. The lower the interest rate, more affordable it will be for you as a buyer, because your EMI is going to be low. Second, Silicon Valley riches, I put it in one single word. Nanu US bandaga, the only thing I heard is stock options, and even that was like a lottery. We don't know how things go. Today, I see youngsters, recently married, who maybe not even having kids, together earn easily around 300,000 as W2 salary. And they have RSUs and bonuses and ESPPs and stock options. And they have enough money in their pocket to buy. And of course, the need, as I told you before, push them towards the thought process of buying a house. And again, even though we had COVID and economies across the world shut down, the effect of that was not uniform, in the sense, especially in Bay Area, tech industrially, people didn't get affected. Maybe hospitality industry or maybe transportation, they got affected because of COVID shutdown. Tech industry didn't. So the stock market actually went up. So all their RSUs started to go up, and they had more and more money as of last 2 years. Maybe this year the stock market did not help much, but overall in 2 years they had significant money from the stock market. So we had a perfect storm, right? Low inventory, the basis for all price changes, increased buyer demand, and fear and greed. I talk about fear and greed because at the end of the day, the micro and macroeconomics of a situation, right? When I say macro, let's say macroeconomics is the interest rate. They all may be helping somebody to buy or not helping somebody to buy because of high interest rate or low interest rate. However, consumer sentiments amplifies that effect. When people become afraid, right? They react more than necessary. And that is why the swing of homes is much more significant than what it should be. Interest rate alone may make somebody, increase in interest rate may make somebody's ability to buy lesser, but they react more aggressively because of fear, and they may stop buying homes, or sellers may decide, oh, prices will go down, so let me put my house on the market now. They probably didn't have a plan, so they will start bringing more homes to the market. So basically what happens, some buyers back out, more sellers come onto the market, so supply increases, demand decreases, and then suddenly you see prices going down. It should not have gone that much down, but because of the fear, both on the seller side and buyer side, it goes down. So fear and greed basically amplifies the effect of micro and macroeconomic conditions. Okay. Having said that, okay, this is the current real estate market. It's a strong seller's market, and the reasons for it. What is the outlook? I don't usually get into prediction, but I can just tell based on data what we can see. So before we look at outlook, let's understand a little bit about how inventory is measured in real estate. So in real estate, inventory is measured in number of months of property. What do I mean by that? What I mean is, let's say in 94582 zip code early, in the last 30 days, 25 homes sold. Okay, in the last 30 days. And today in the market, there are 50 homes for sale in the same zip code. So at the rate of how many homes sold in the last 30 days, which is 25 homes, how long does it take for these 50 homes to get sold? It will take 2 months, right? Then we say the inventory of homes in 94580 is 2 months of inventory. Okay. Having said that, what is inventory and how we measure in real estate? Let's look at what people talk about buyer's market and seller's market. And, basically people don't know. I mean, in general, I'm not questioning their intelligence. Just in general, we don't know what a seller's and a buyer's market is. So sellers and buyers market is defined, and there is a reason for this definition, and I don't want to get into that now. Anytime the inventory is more than 7 months, it's considered a buyer's market. And anytime the inventory is less than 6 months, is considered a seller's market. And a neutral market is 6 to 7 months of inventory. Okay, so that's the underlying thing. Okay, inventory, supply of homes. Okay, buyer's market, seller's market. Having said that, what is the inventory of homes in Contra, Costa and Alameda County as of today? Okay, for all kinds of homes. Left hand side ali dollar anta hakidini. It's not dollar. It's a number of months of inventory. Ignore that dollar sign. So if you look at it, let's look at it February. February, the amount of inventory we have is around 1.75 months of inventory. And what did I say is a buyer's market? More than 7 months of inventory. And we have what? 1.75 months of inventory. So today the supply is so low that no matter what is happening, Ukraine war or interest rate going up or any other geopolitical issue is not going to significantly change the market direction. There will be an effect because of interest rate hike, but nobody should be thinking about 2008 when that happens. The only thing I can clearly say is last 2 years early on average Bay Area 15% growth ittu real estate ali per year, 15% per year. I would expect because of the interest rate hike, probably it will dent, and then expectations around 5 to 6% growth this year instead of 15% growth. Okay, unless something else happens, something that nobody has visualized. Maybe Kim Jong-un wakes up tomorrow morning, is bored and throws a bomb on California, then yeah, that's something I cannot predict, but that can create a problem, right? That's a disruption which can affect the housing market. But bottom line, inventory is very low today. Talking about 2008, because this is the most recent recession we had, at least people who lived through that, they have memories of that, and they will fear will always be there. We are humans, we are afraid of what may happen, so we think about 2008 ತರ ಆದರೆ ಏನು ಮಾಡೋದು ಅಂತ. But let's look at the conditions prior to 2008 and what it is today. So I've picked only few parameters here, otherwise the slides will become too many. So let's look at amount of equity cashed out prior to 2008, in the last 3 years prior to 2008, compared to like 2017 to 2019 before COVID. What I mean by equity cashed out, which means homeowners have equity in the house and they decide to take that money out of the house, taking HELOC or cash out refinance. So they take additional loan on the existing house, take that money and do something else with it. So prior to 2008, homeowners in total had 824 billion of equity taken out of their homes. And between 2017 and 19, it was $232 billion. So what's the difference? It's like the number of amount of equity taken out in the last few years is 25% of what it was before the crash. What does this mean? Which means people have a lot of skin in the game today in their homes. They have not taken additional loans on the homes. They have their own money in their homes compared to what it was in 2000 prior to 2008. ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅವಾಗ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಯುವರ್ ಓನ್ ಮನಿ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಫಾರ್ ಎನಿ ರೀಸನ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಸೆಲ್ ಯುವರ್ ಹೌಸ್, ಇಟ್ಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಈಸಿ ಟು ವಾಕ್ ಔಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಹೌಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ foreclose like they did in 2008. People didn't have their own money. Most of it was bank's money, and they didn't mind walking out of the house, foreclosing. So that's one big reason. People will not walk out like they did last time around. Talking about equity, at least 17.8 million people, actually it's more than that now, have at least 50% equity in the house. They have their own money in the house, which comes to around 32% of homeowners having equity in the house. And 38% of homes are owned without any loan. Again, re-emphasizing the fact that a lot of people have their own money in their house. And the second parameter to look as a comparison between 2008 and now is what is called as a mortgage credit availability index. The higher this number, the easier it is to get a loan. Okay, so you can look at prior to 2008, this number was pretty high, significantly high, which is anybody and everybody could walk into a bank and get a loan. Whether you have enough income, enough assets, banks were giving free loan. But after the cash, the banks tightened the rule. So the ability for people to get loans is much more difficult than what it was prior to 2008. So what does this again tell us? Which means 2008 ಮುಂಚೆ ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಜನ were buying second home, third home, because the banks were giving loan. Why not? They kept seeing home prices going up year over. They said, okay, bank is giving money, I'll buy the house and it will appreciate and I'll make money. So it's a classic case of a bubble where people are buying assets without having the resources to pay them. That's not the case today. Banks are not giving free loan. Okay, so you don't have that kind of a scenario. And one more parameter to look at is foreclosures, right? This is between January 2012 and today. See the amount of foreclosure properties percentage wise compared to homes available for sale today is significantly less. It's less than 1%. Whereas if you look at around the peak recession time, you are looking at a significantly higher number of foreclosure properties, right? All indications of the market was very, very bad, shaky. People were giving up on their houses before that. That is not the case now. A few other things I did not pick up in the slides, unemployment rate, etc., which, unemployment rate is pretty good. I mean, soon after COVID, we had some losses, but then they were all in not permanent sectors. Most of them were temporary jobs and then transportation and hospitality and stuff like that. But Bay Area, if at all you focus on Bay Area, it's pretty strong. People are finding it difficult to keep employees. You have this, they coined a term for this, people moving from one company to another company, right? That has become the new, So again, employment is not at all a problem. Okay. Having said that, I mean, this is basically a part about real estate market today and the outlook for what we see in the near term. Right now, it's time for Kahoot, and Rohit and TVKS, please take over from me.
Thank you, Girish ಅವರೇ. ಗಿರೀಶ್ ಅವರೇ, ಕಹೂಟ್ ಆದ ನಂತರ ಎರಡು ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಕೇಳಿಬಿಡ್ತೀವಿ. Audience has asked a couple of questions. ನೀವು ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. Let us play the Kahoot game and then ask the questions, if that's okay with you. Just as a housekeeping item, last time Kahoot game winners ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಪ್ರೈಸ್ ಕಳಿಸಿ ಆಯ್ತು through the email. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಗಿಫ್ಟ್ ಕಾರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ಕಳಿಸಿ ಆಯ್ತು. ಯಾರಿಗನ ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲದೆ ಇದ್ದ ಪಕ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಥವಾ ಇಮೇಲ್ ನೋಡಿಲ್ಲದೆ ಇದ್ದ ಪಕ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿ ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಪ್ಲೀಸ್ ಲೆಟ್ us know. Write to us at sponsorship@tvksangha.org ಇಮೇಲ್ಗೆ ರೆಸ್ಪಾಂಡ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನಮಗೆ ಬಂದಿದೆಯೋ ಅಲ್ವೋ ತಿಳಿಸಿ. ವಿಲ್ ಮೇಕ್ ಶೂರ್ ಯು ಗೆಟ್ ಯುವರ್ ಗಿಫ್ಟ್ ಕಾರ್ಡ್ಸ್. I will have to quickly share my screen and I will put the Kahoot link in the chat window. If you're ready, please tell me when you are ready to, when you see the Kahoot game. ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ರೆಡಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ ಜಾಯಿನ್ ಆಗ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ? I am going to copy the link and paste it in the chat window for all of you over here too, for those who are joining on the web or on the phone. Both can work. Please join the Kahoot game. The game code is being entered as we speak. So we have 6 players. We need more players. David to join Agri. Prize Gallery. Mate. ನಮಗೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಇಮೇಲ್ ಅಡ್ರೆಸ್ ಕಳಿಸಿ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಟು ಗೆಟ್ ದ ಗಿಫ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಪ್ಲೀಸ್. ಅದನ್ನ ಮರಿಬೇಡ್ರಿ. ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ 13 ಜನ. ಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ಗಿವ್ another 10 seconds. ಓಕೆ, 15 ಜನ ಜಾಯಿನ್ ಆಯ್ತು. ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಣ. ಎಸ್ ಆರ್ ನೋ ವೋಟ್ ಬೇಕು.
ಜನಗಳು ಇನ್ನು ಜಾಯಿನ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಅವಕಾಶ ಕೊಡೋಣ.
ಹೆಸರುಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ನೇಮ್ ಗಂಡುಗಲಿ. ಅಮೇಸಿಂಗ್. ಇವಾಗ ಸುನಿಲ್ ಅವ್ರು ಜಾಯಿನ್ ಆದ್ರು. ಸೌಮ್ಯ, ಕಿರಣ್, ದಿನೇಶ್, ಶೋಭಾ, ಶಶಿ, ವಿದ್ಯಾ, ಪ್ರಶಾಂತ್, ರಾಜೇಂದ್ರ, ರಮೇಶ್, ಸುನಿ, ರಾಜು, ಕಿರಣ್, ಭಾರತಿ, ಕಾರ್ತಿಕ್, ಸುರೇಶ್ ಸಿ. 19 people so far. ಓಕೆ, ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಣ ಗೇಮ್.
ಕೌಂಟ್ ಡೌನ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಅವಾಗ ಜಾಯಿನ್ ಆಗೋರು ಆಗ್ತಾರೆ.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What is the singular reason for rapid increase of real estate price in the Bay Area other than COVID related? What is the singular reason for rapid increase of real estate price in Bay Area other than COVID related? 17 answers so far. So low supply is the right answer over here. So very good answer. ಇವಾಗ ರಮೇಶ್ ಅಂತೀನಿ, ಗಿರೀಶ್ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಒಂದು ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಕೇಳ್ಬಿಡೋಣ. ಗಿರೀಶ್ ಅವರೇ, ಒಂದು ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಬಂತು, ಏನು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. Why is there so much demand for homes in Bay Area just because of the influx of population? Is it not because of that the home prices went up all over the USA? ಅಂತ.
Okay. So I think in one of the previous graphs I showed supply and demand over the years, and ನಾನು ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ದಂಗೆ the demand has not really fluctuated too much, right? When I say increase in demand, the demand increase is not like, okay, bar was here and then now it has gone way above, right? The demand is more or less remained within a small delta range. So it's not necessarily the demand has increased, it's because the supply is not enough, especially post-COVID. The reason is a lot of people decided not to sell the homes even if they had plans to sell the house after COVID for various reasons, right? Their own personal situation, life situation changed and they decided not to sell. Or in many cases, COVID, because of the transmissible disease, they didn't want strangers to walk into their house. People were more afraid of their lives. Forget about job, forget about selling a house. So the supply of homes became significantly low. And demand increased in a way, I mean, comparatively higher, not significantly higher, increased because of the fact I told people wanted larger space. ನನ್ನ own buyers, many of them, I mean, significant portion of them were in the market to buy because they couldn't live in a claustrophobic environment of a small space, especially ಮಕ್ಕಳಿದ್ದವರು. And many times when parents visit, they didn't have space. I mean, I heard stories where they had 2-bedroom and, wife was working in one, the husband was working one, and the parents were sitting in the living room sofa all the time. And with the kids there, they cannot do anything. I mean, ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಪಾರ್ಕ್ ಹೋಗ ಅಂದ್ರು ಪಾರ್ಕ್ were closed, right? I mean, even community park were closed within the HOA community. So they were desperate and the prices shot up because the desperation led them to throw the money in a way like, let me, when I put 200,000 more or $300,000 more, I just want the house. They had the money to do that. If they didn't have the money, it wouldn't have gone that high. But they had the money to do that. So that is the main reason the prices went up, demand went up. But again, it's the supply, the main criteria, as the quiz question said, it's the low supply compared with the money capacity buyers had and the desperation they had to buy the house.
Super. So Girish avre ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಕೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಹೋಗೋಣ. ಉಳಿದಿದ್ದನ್ನ ವಿಲ್ ಆಸ್ಕ್ ಯು ಟುವರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ದ ಎಂಡ್.
Okay.
ಒಂದೇನು ಅಂದ್ರೆ there was news yesterday that Federal Reserve warns of a brewing housing bubble anta. Adre ನೀವು ತೋರಿಸಿದ ಚಾರ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ distress sale didn't quite reflect the Fed's warning. What's your take on this anta?
So this has been the talk of the town. I mean, I'm looking at data, right? I'm not looking at whether Federal Reserve says that or somebody says that. I'm looking at data. So this has been a talk for many time, right? When they had this, what do you call it, owners scare because of COVID. The federal government had come up with allowing them to stay in the house even if they're not able to pay the mortgage, right? And people were all thinking once that goes away, which went away, right? Those homeowners who are unable to pay mortgage are now going to foreclose on the homes, right? That was the kind of discussions going on, but that didn't happen. Actually, a lot of people who are in that program, they were able to resurrect themselves and pay back the loans and continue to live there. So, having said that, foreclosures will only come into picture when people lose jobs, number one, in big numbers, they can't pay. Okay. Second is, if they were already in this mortgage, program where they were allowed to not pay the mortgage, they have come back to the market. They have come back to the outside of the program by paying the mortgage, so they are not in trouble of losing their homes. So both these criteria. Besides, the last part is the demand is there. Even if the supply increases, the demand is there to take that supply. And lastly, foreclosure. Let's say I have my house, I'm going to foreclose, I put it on foreclosure today in Sandoval, right? If I do that, I'm not going to sell it for 50% of my current market value, because people are going to bid and overbid today because of the low supply, and I'm actually going to make a FT sum on that house I have. And I can use that money to pay back the bank, and the rest of the profit I can do whatever I want, maybe live for rental home for another 3-4 years and, maybe look into buying back a house again. So, point is, foreclosures ago on the condition currently is not there based on the data. Whether things can change down the line, something that I cannot predict. So one thing I keep telling, the most famous economist that we know who predicted the 2008 crash, Robert Shiller, who is a Nobel Prize winning economist. If you look at his predictions other than the 2008 crash, if you Google, you don't see any other predictions, right? So the point is, even somebody who has got a Nobel Prize in economy cannot predict everything that will happen. And there are companies like Zillow and Redfin who are cash rich, who have algorithms, who have the best data scientists to come up with the algorithms. They themselves are not able to predict the price of the house. For example, Zillow closed their entire department, which was based on buying homes and then selling it for profit. They were buying homes based on their own Z estimate predictions, and they made a big mess of it. That estimates numbers were much higher. They were paying more than what they should pay. They ended up with a lot of inventory. They could not sell those homes. Eventually, they took a loss and closed the department. So, point is, what will happen in the future? Neither the supercomputers have enough capacity in terms of various variables that goes into how the market moves, nor do top economists can predict it regularly. So, I would say today's conditions does not predict anything of that kind happening, unless, again, like I told you earlier, some major disruption happens in the market.
That makes sense, sir. Do you want to proceed with the presentation, sir?
Sure. Okay. So, this section, I'll focus morely on buying a property, and the three subjects under that or sections under that is, first of all, are you ready? And if you are ready, what is the preparation as a buyer you should do, and what to do when you're searching for a house? And the third thing is pros and cons of buying a property. Like anything in life, there is a positive and negative. Let's look at what are those in terms of buying a property. So the first thing I always ask buyers during my first conversation with them is, I try to be a devil's advocate to them. I tell them, you don't need to buy a house. Explain to me or convince me why you need to buy a house. Okay. So what I'm doing when I do that is, I want them to think harder, right? Because buying a house may not be for everybody, and they may not have the resources. ನನಗೇನಿಲ್ಲ, ಮನೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಕೊಡಿಸ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು I will take my commission, right? My job is done. Why should I even bother whether they are ready to buy or not? But for me, I don't want to see their faces 2 years later when things have gone wrong. Maybe they were not ready. Maybe they had to move in 2 years and they ended up buying, and then now they have to sell it for a loss. I don't want to see a sad face 2 years later. Agagi, the first thing I always ask them is, do you really need a house? Explain to me why you need a house. Or do you want a house? Want and need are different, as everybody knows. I need a house, let's say, because I'm renting, I'm regularly paying rent, and after 10 years, I have nothing to show for myself. Otherwise, mane kondkondidre, I might have built my own equity, homes have appreciated, I would have made some money. That is the need part. Want part is, I want a house with an infinity pool, right? Why do I need a house with infinity pool? It's not a need, it's a want. So that's what I try to differentiate when the buyers explain. So that's the first thing any buyer should think, need versus want. Why do they need? And most of the time, the answer is there, but I just want them to re-emphasize that when I talk to them. And that's the same thing I would advise you to do. Second is, okay, fine, somebody says, I need a house. They are able to convince themselves and convince me. Next question is, do they have the financial capacity to buy the house? So that's where comes all their, income, debt, their down payment capacity, credit score, etc. And that's the biggest step they need to take is talk to your lender and make sure they have the capacity to buy a house, right? Most likely everybody will have a capacity, but it's the budget that comes into picture, right? They want to see whether that budget is enough for them to buy the kind of house they need in the cities they need. And the third thing is, okay, you have the need, you have the financial capacity. Can you hold a property long term? And this is important because, like stock market, real estate over long term, the probability it will grow and increase is higher. The probability is higher. Not that if you buy a house today, next year adu appreciate agala antalla. We have seen in the last 2 years, year over year, it has appreciated significantly. But the probability it will increase every year is lesser. But the longer you hold it, the higher the probability. So they should have the capacity to hold a property long term. Now, what are the things that will come in their way of holding the property long term? ನಮ್ಮಂಥವ್ರಿಗೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಿಂದ ಬಂದಿರೋ ಇಮಿಗ್ರೆಂಟ್ಸ್ಗೆ visa status is one thing, right? If you are on visa and H1 and you have to renew it, do the buyer expect there will be any issues for renewal, right? There could be innumerable reasons. They have to make sure that they are comfortable that they can renew the visa. There is not going to be any problem. Second is the job status. So their visa is good, but how about their job? Maybe their own position in the company or their department or the company itself. Is it shaky? Do they expect there will be problems? Is there a possibility they may lose a job, or potentially lose a job in the near term? If they do think there is a possibility that happens, do they think they can immediately find another job, right? So that is another criteria which will affect their ability to hold the house, the property long term. And the third part is parent status back in India. If you have old parents, elderly parents living in India, how is their health? Do you need to go back to help them, support them if their health is not that good, or do you have any siblings who can take care of them? So is that going to come in your way of holding the property long term? So these are the top 3 things for you to consider, for any buyer to consider, to see if they are ready to buy a house. Once these are clarified, then comes preparation, and I say perform, that is basically performing your search. Preparation is, of course, I talked earlier about finances. You got to make sure your finances are lined up and you're done. Preparation can also mean understanding what you need, right? Most often, if we are married, husband and wife, why don't you write down all the things that you want in a house, right? So that way, when you're searching, you don't want to be spending time figuring out what you need while searching. At least have some idea what you need before you start searching. Prepare yourself for that. Preparation also means psychological preparation. What do I mean by psychological preparation? A lot of times you may have the money, you may have a need to buy a house and all the things I talked in the previous slide, but mentally you may not be prepared. Main reason is, this is the largest purchase in most people's lives. It's not something, I usually say, it's not something you can buy in Costco today and return it tomorrow, right? So mentally, are you willing to do that? That fear will always be there with everybody. So sometimes it takes time. Sometimes, you drop out. I have buyers who come on and off saying, okay, I want to see, and then they say, oh, I'm afraid, they back out, and again they come back. So that thing happens. And there is nothing wrong or right about it. It is just that your risk profile is not allowing you to be confident about it today. So that's a mental preparation, psychological preparation. And logistics. Logistics is basically, okay, fine, you decide to buy. How is it going to affect your life, right? I mean, if you are going to buy in XYZ city because your budget only allows you to buy a property there, how does it affect your commute? What do you want to do about it? Or let's say you have a small child and you buy a house in Dublin and husband and wife both are working in South Bay. Who will take care of the baby, right? When you both have to go to work. Maybe today it's work from home, you're okay, but what happens if both your companies say you have to come back to work? So some of those logistics you have to visualize and look at it and see what is the plan if you are going to buy a house in whatever city you are thinking of. Lastly, coordination. Coordination with your agent, I feel, is very key because during this process of buying a house, both the client and the agent are kind of in a short-term marriage. And they both have the same goal and they are trying to achieve that. And for that to happen, just like in a marriage, there has to be trust between the agent and the clients. If there is no trust, I don't think it will work. So as an agent, I will never demand trust. I have to earn trust. So I will try to work on earning the trust. As a client, I hope I will be able to win their trust and do it. But at the end of the day, you have to be transparent between the two of the agent and the client. The more they're transparent, the more the agent knows about the situation, the better he can do in terms of the job he has to do. Now, one simple example, let's say in market alley, when you put an offer, it's not just about highest price, it's not just about no contingencies, etc. So if it was that simple, you don't need an agent, right? I mean, ಈ ಸ್ಟಾಕಿ ಪ್ರೈಸು ಓಕೆ ನೋ ಕಂಟಿಂಜೆನ್ಸಿ ಹಾಕಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮನೆ ಸಿಕ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ವೈ ಡು ಯು ನೀಡ್ ಅ ಏಜೆಂಟ್ ಫಾರ್ ದಟ್, ರೈಟ್? No, not necessarily. I have to understand the requirements of the seller, right? What drives them. I have to talk to the seller's agent and see, okay, how that person works. More than anything else, today's sellers are also looking not only at highest price and no contingency, they're also looking at the financial capacity of the buyer. For example, there is a house for $1 million. Let's say offers come at $1 million. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಆಫರ್ $1 million ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ರು ಯಾರೋ ಬಯರ್ದು $1 million ಇರುತ್ತೆ. Suppose you are putting 60% down payment on $1 million and the other buyer, same price $1 million but only putting 10% down payment. As a seller, which buyer would the seller feel more confident to take the offer, right? Obviously the one who is putting 60% down payment because they seem to have enough cash with them and they don't expect any problem with the loan. So for your agent, if he knows all your financial capacity. Let's say you have $600,000 worth of disposable cash. If I know that, then I can structure the offer to show that you are putting 60% down payment. So your offer looks stronger. Not that when you take the loan, you have to put 60% down payment for the loan. The loan, you can always put 20% down payment, even though in the offer you say you are putting 60% down payment. So that's a separate topic. I don't want to get deeper. The point I'm trying to say is, if an agent knows everything about your finances and other things, your requirements, they can do a better job. Okay, so that's where I talk about coordination. Okay, now that you are searching for a house, what is it that you should focus on? Okay, this is what this slide is about. So one thing I tell buyers is, why don't you write down a list of your wish list between, let's say, married couple, husband and wife. Write down a wish list. Maybe it is 20 items in the wish list. Maybe it is 50 items. I don't care. Small little things you want, write it down. Then out of that list, pick 2 or 3 at the most top priority items that you cannot compromise on. Because there is no such thing as a house which is perfect in everything you want. You have to make it perfect based on top priority items. If it meets your top priority items, then yes, this house is to be considered. If it does not meet even one of the top priority items, then that is not the house for you. Okay. Having said that, when you go to a house, what are the things to look for? So, location. I mean, you would have heard articles and over there, they keep talking about location, at the 3 times, right? I don't know why 3 times. Could be more than 3 times. But the point they are trying to do in those articles is to stress location is the most important thing when you buy a house. So what do I mean by location? Location can mean many things for many people. There is no like a set of criteria when I say location. For example, somebody is looking at schools, which most of us do. They want good schools, but some person may be okay with 6+ rating, grade school rating, but other people only want 9+ grade school rating. So you see, it is the same school related criteria, but each person has a different criteria for that, what they mean is a good school district. So that's why location can mean different for different people. Or location can be negative also. If there is a freeway behind your backyard, that's a negative part of the location. So you need to look at whether a specific property meets your specific location requirement. Okay. Second thing is floor plan of the house. So you walk into the house and then you see that the floor plan is not open like modern construction. Like it's like chock-a-block, ella pakkadalli boxy type irutte. Some people may like that because they feel it gives privacy. Some people may not like it because they feel they want more open floor plan. So that floor plan is the important criteria. Next is natural light. I think this is intuitive. You want to walk into a house where you feel bright and clean so that mind also opens up. You don't want to walk into a dark and dingy house, right? Natural light is important. No matter how much of artificial light you have, it's not going to replace the natural light. So you need natural light. And the last thing is spaces, individual spaces in the house. Like, do you feel it is small? Is the living room small? Is the kitchen small? Or the kids' bedroom small? Or do you think it is ample space? How spacious it is? I prefer to have high ceilings when I enter the house. The moment I enter the house, if I see high ceiling, I feel a little bit agura agate mansu nange. If I see a low ceiling in the entry path, and I feel kind of, claustrophobic, I feel kind of not comfortable. So each person has a different reason of what they mean the spaces, but they need to figure out whether the spaces are meeting the requirement. Now, why did I pick up these 4? Why did I not pick up something else? The reason I picked up these 4 is, these are things you cannot change. You cannot change the location of the house if it is behind a freeway. You cannot change that. Floor plan, most likely you cannot change it unless you are willing to, if it's a single family home and you are willing to spend considerable amount of time and money to change it. You have to get city permit and that takes time, and architectural design, that will take money, and then contractor, all those headaches. It's not easy. you can do it, but it's not easy. So that's another thing. Natural light, of course, same thing. If the house is built in a certain way, or if it is, let's say, if it's a townhome sandwiched between two other homes, well, the amount of light you get is what you get. You cannot change anything because windows can be only on two sides. Spaces also, same thing. So these are the things most often you cannot change in a property, and if these do not meet your requirement, then that property is not yours. Anything else? I suggest to buyers in this today's market, so low supply market, be willing to compromise, because you can't expect everything. Oh, this granite countertop illa. Well, unfortunately, you have a house at least which meets the top criteria, or they don't like XYZ. I have it, first time buyers, especially youngsters, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಲ್ಲ ಪಾಪ. ದೇಸಾಗಿ ಕಲರ್ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಪೇಂಟಿಂಗ್ದು ಮನೆ ಬಂದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. And I listened to them, and I would have said the same thing if I was in their shoes, but because of the experience I said, okay, fine, I understand, but that's something you can spend some money and get it done as long as these things are done, because I don't think we'll have a better chance, or there are not 100 different homes for you to go and select the kind of color you want. So you just have this home. How many homes do we have? Very little. So that is why these 4 criteria are important, things which you cannot change. Okay, now let's get back to benefits of owning a property. There are tangible benefits and intangible benefits of owning property. Of course, tangible is something you can measure, intangible is something you cannot measure, right? So let's look at the tangible benefits. So real estate is considered, buying a property at a 30-year fixed mortgage is considered ultimate rent control, which means as long as you own the property, your monthly EMI is not going to increase. It's like you buying a rental, you are getting into a rental property where the rent is not going to increase as long as you do. That's the ultimate rent control. And there are tax benefits, tax deductions. Of course, with the new Trump law, that benefits kind of dwindled a bit, but you still have the ability to take tax benefits if you can itemize, and if your itemization is more than the standard deduction. But up to $750,000 of loan amount, the interest you pay on that loan amount is tax deductible. You still have the provision to take tax deduction on property tax you pay, but because of the way the new law is structured, in California, it is as good as not being there, that provision not being there. The property tax, you cannot take deduction because of the way it is, limitation is set. But you do get tax deductions on mortgage interest. Then there is a capital gain tax exclusion for a primary house, on a house where you have been living for 2 years or more. Up to $500,000 of profit you make for married couple, you don't have to pay capital gain tax. And that capital gain tax can be anywhere from 30 to 35% based on your income level. So even if you take 30% lower end of capital gain tax on a $500,000 profit, you would end up saving $150,000, which you don't have to pay to Uncle Sam. There is no other investment where capital gain tax comes free up to $500,000. You put it in stock market or anything else you want to do. There is no such investment. So that's a big number. Actually, that's a big number. And that $150,000 is after-tax money. For you to save $150,000 after paying taxes, you should have saved more than $150K, right? So that's the other thing. And appreciation and equity growth over long term, right? Over long term, again, I repeat that. What do I mean by long term? Well, I have a number which I came up based on data. Anywhere from 6 to 8 years I considered as long term. And I have a separate slide, although discussion I cannot show that because of time factor, but we can always have a private discussion on that. So 6 to 8 years is what I consider long term in real estate. You can definitely expect that the house price will be higher than what you paid for today if you hold it long enough. Okay, and it will grow. And if not make a good amount of money, you'll at least not lose money. And the last tangible benefits is leverage. And leverage is not something people think about. What do I mean by leverage? So let me give a quick example. Nimatra, let's say $200,000 ಇದೆ, and you don't know what to do with that money. One option is you want to put in S&P 500 index fund. Just put it there, no headaches, and over a long period, S&P 500 will grow. It has been grown historically. It will continue to grow. It may be ups and downs, but it will grow. But the other option for you is use the $200,000 for a down payment to buy a house worth $1 million. Okay, so S&P 500 index or put it in real estate. Let's say in 1 year, the S&P 500 grows by 10%. Okay, so 200,000 becomes 220,000. So your gross profit is 20,000. Okay, now let's assume you end up buying a house worth $1 million, and in 1 year that grows by 5%. I'm taking half of the growth of S&P 500, 5%. So 5% growth is on $1 million, $50,000. So you see the same 200,000 got $20,000 gross profit in stock. It got $50,000 profit on real estate. Why is it so? The simple reason is the growth in real estate is based on $1 million, not based on $200,000. So the bank gave you loan for $800,000, but the growth is on complete amount, your money in the bank money, and you get to keep all the profit, not the bank. You're not giving the part of it to the bank. So that is leverage. Leverage is you're using bank's money to appreciate and you pocket the profit. So that's something people miss when they're looking at investment options. Oh, whether it's you're buying it as an investment property or not. Okay, those are tangible benefits. Let's look at intangible benefits. Intangible benefits, pride of ownership, stability, and accomplishment, right? I mean, you buy a house, you come to US, especially now we immigrants who we establish ourselves, we are more focused on securing our job. And then you achieve something like buying a house. It's an accomplishment you can't measure. The feeling you cannot measure. Second, freedom of living in a house, right? You don't have to worry ನಾಳೆ ಒಂದು ಗೋಡೆಗೆ ಮಳೆ ಹೊಡಿಬೇಕು, ಒಂದು ಫೋಟೋ ಹ್ಯಾಂಗ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ you don't have to worry about your landlord because at the back of the mind ಇರುತ್ತೆ, or maybe your neighbor. It's your own house. And memories to cherish when you are growing, right? You build your family, your kids, all the things. That's something that you will carry forever. And lastly, it's the only investment where you can purchase the investment and enjoy the investment as a homeowner, right? You live in that, you live in that investment property, you enjoy that investment property. Anything else other than gold? Again, gold also is very aesthetic enjoyment, but it's not a functional enjoyment you get out of gold. So these are the intangible benefits of owning property. Like I told earlier, everything has positives and negatives in life. What are the negatives of cons of owning real estate? Well, two of the things I can only come up with is two. One is real estate is an illiquid asset, meaning unlike stock market, with a click of the mouse button, you cannot sell the stock and get the money in your bank account in 2 days. Real estate takes time to sell. So it's not liquid enough. And that may be an issue for some, right? You have urgently in need of money and you can't just sell it just like that. Second thing is it limits flexibility. So definitely, if you change your job and you have to move to a different city or different state, the property you own becomes a drag. Because if you are renting, you just have to give a notice, pay some penalty, maybe 1 or 2 months the rental penalty, and then just move. If you have a real estate, it's not that easy. You have to think about what to do with that, and it takes time. So those are the two cons of owning real estate. Okay. Let's look at real estate as an investment. Okay, whatever I talked earlier, ಮುಂಚೆ ಮಾತಾಡಿದಲ್ಲ, ನೀವು mostly focused on you buying a house to live. But if you are planning to invest in real estate, what are the few things to look at? So again, broadly speaking, everybody has choices. If they have money, they can just leave it in their savings account, they can buy bonds, they can buy stocks, or they can buy real estate and multiple other things, oil and gas, etc., etc. Anyway, that's not the focus of this discussion, so I just wanted this small little comparison. Real estate has its own unique advantages as listed here. High cash yield, like cash flow will be much higher in real estate in general. equity buildup, and then leverage, which I told earlier. Hard asset, it's a hard asset. It's something you can hold and feel, unlike stock or other thing. And then tax advantage, right? Which we already talked about taxes in the past. Like capital gain tax exclusion or the deductions you can take on mortgage interest. Now, there are much more tax advantages as an investment property than as a property you own, okay? So one thing is there is no limitations on mortgage interest you can take as tax deduction as an investment. As a property which you live, homeowner, there is a limitation of 750,000 loan amount. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಕೊಡ್ತೀರೋ ಅಷ್ಟು ಮಾತ್ರ ನೀವು ಡಿಡಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. As an investment, the complete interest you pay can be deducted. You can also deduct all the property taxes you pay on real estate as an investment. You can deduct your HOA fees if it's a townhome or condo as a deductions. So more deductions you can take. And then there is amortization, right? And basically, every month you pay your EMI, you are paying principal as well as interest. The principal part is going to reduce your loan amount on the house. So you're building a forced savings through that investment. And one thing people don't think about is depreciation loss you can take on real estate. So depreciation loss is not an actual loss. It's basically, let's say $1 million house investment property ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ, approximately I'm giving, every year you can take $20,000 approximately as depreciation on that property as a loss. Even though the property values has gone up, you can still say this property has lost value of $20,000 on your tax filing. So what that means is for that $20,000, you don't have to pay income tax for that year. Okay, so that's an additional loss you can take. So these are the additional benefits of real estate as an investment compared to owning a property. Now, again, like I said, these are all accounting related. Talk to a public CPA and get clarity from the horse's mouth. I am telling this based on my own rental properties, what I have been doing, okay? And this depreciation also, there is something called as a Depreciation Recapture Tax. So it's not like completely free. You have to pay some tax when you sell the house, okay? Which will be lesser than your income tax that you are saving today, okay? And of course, leverage that I talked earlier, okay? Now, as a homeowner, whether it's a real, as an investment property or as something else, there are other costs. It's not just your EMI or your HOA or your property tax that you're paying. Hidden costs are there, right? As listed here, right? HOA fees, mortgage interest, of course, we know that, closing cost, maintenance, renovations you may have to do. In some cases, you may have to take care of utilities, right? For investment, or if you're owning the house, that's utilities probably will be higher than a rental place. Home insurance and potentially private mortgage insurance if your down payment is not enough. So there are some hidden costs of owning a property. That's something you have to consider when you're analyzing to buy a property, whether for investment or not. Okay. And okay. So one quick example about what it means to buy a investment property. So I have taken two properties which are real properties. I mean, it's not hypothetical. They were in the market and they got sold for these numbers. Whatever numbers I have listed here, ಆ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂಗೆ ಸೇಲ್ ಆಗಿತ್ತದು. So one is a condo, one is a single family house. So quick ಆಗಿ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ, this condo sold for 710. The rent the buyer got when they rented it out was 2,800. The amount of cash flow, like which includes principal, interest, property tax, homeowners insurance and association fee, was 3,643. So 2,800 was the rent they were getting. 3,643 is their cash flow, which means they had a negative cash flow of $843 per month. Let's look at the single family homes. Same thing. These are all real numbers. The rent the buyer was getting was $3,000 per month, but their cash flow was $3,462, which is negative cash flow of $462. So I'm not looking at the specific numbers here. The idea here is when you buy a single unit property, almost anywhere in Bay Area, single unit andre it could be a single family, it could be a townhome, it could be a condo. When you buy a single unit property with 25% down payment, that is the minimum required for most investment property loans, you cannot expect positive cash flow or break even number from the get-go. You have to be open for negative cash flow. Over the period of years, you may be able to increase the rent and bridge that gap. Okay, and eventually, like it happened in the last 4 or 5 years, if the interest rate keeps coming down, you can refinance, so your EMI decreases. But I don't foresee that situation today. I don't think interest rate will come down in the future for you to refinance. So there are ways to bridge this gap, but you should be open for negative cash flow. But if you are getting negative cash flow, why are you even thinking of buying a investment property, right? Well, the reason is you are looking for money to come through appreciation. Okay. Recently, I posted a post on Facebook with my own analysis of what happened with appreciation in Contra, Costa, and Alameda County for the last 10 years. And I believe, if I remember right, the numbers were like over 10 years, the appreciation rate per year was around 10% plus. Okay. And it was for single family, and it was even higher for townhome and condo. Actually, most people think townhome and condo appreciation kami irutte anta, but it was higher for townhomes and condo. So you are looking for appreciation. So if you hold it long enough, I'm not saying 10% in next 10 years, every year it will increase, but if past is any reference for you, you can definitely expect good growth rate. That is where you will be planning to make money out of buying a single unit real estate. Now, if you increase your down payment from 25 to 40%, most likely you will break even from get-go, because now your loan is less, your EMI is less. Okay, so that's about investment property. I think the next section is selling your house. Rohit, ready for the next Kahoot?
Yes, sir. We're ready for the next Kahoot. I know we have gone on the timeline. We're at 12:15. We've extended by 15 minutes. We will, after this Kahoot game, we will do a quick run through. The good thing is Girish Bangalore is nearby. You can reach out to him for more detail. He'll pick up a few important points on the selling of the house, and we'll quickly hit another game of Kahoot. Thank you for your patient audience. Let's go to the next game. Give me 1 second while I start the screen. Oops, I actually, okay.
That's correct.
No, but the game pin is 124542. I'm just going to send the game pin for everybody, irrespective of the chart. So that was a little bit of a miss. I said next and the button came on. Yeah, the game pin is this thing. I think we got 7 answers. Sorry, my apologies on this one. We'll conduct it again. The next question, I think the question is, what is the most important criterion while searching for a property? And like Girish said, it's location, location, and location. So we have the next one. Okay. With that, I think I'll hand over to Girish so that we go on. And there are some questions, Girish, we will funnel through afterwards. There are some questions. I'll let you go through the next set of presentation.
Okay. This one will be short. I'll make it quick because the slides themselves are not too many. So selling a property, right? I come up with a 5 piece of marketing your property, right? The important criteria. And this 5 piece will cover everything that a seller has to think about marketing a property. Quickly, the 5 P's are planning, preparation, presentation, price, and promotion. Okay. So planning. So when you plan to sell your house, there are so many things that has to fall in place. Your own, as a seller, your own personal requirements, right? You may be planning to buy another house, and then how do we make sure that we sell this house and buy the other house? Do you need the money from the sale of your current house for you to use it for your next purchase? If so, then you have to wait until this house is sold and you get the money. Then what happens to you? Where will you stay after you sold your current house? Because now you have to spend time looking for your next house. So all those criteria will fit. And planning also includes, okay, from the day you decide to sell to the time the house is going to go on the market, there are so many things we have to do as a seller, as well as me as the agent, including, making sure the coordination, right? Decluttering of the house and repairs of the house, inspections of the house, and then staging of the house, right? And then we have to get contractors lined up, photography, videography, and we have to make sure everybody is lined up, their time is available, our time is available, so that we list it based on the goal we have when we have to list a house. So this is a critical period to get the house ready to sell. The planning is very key there. Next is preparation. Preparation, like I touched upon, you have to prepare the house. You want to make sure it's prepared in a way that house appears in the best condition possible. So some of the things like decluttering, getting inspections done, getting repairs done, painting done, maybe carpet needs to be replaced, maybe fence has to be painted, maybe we have to put new mulch on the front and backyard. So many things. So we have to get all those things taken care of. Next is presentation. Okay, we did all this preparation. The house is now decluttered. Now we have to present it in a way that when a buyer walks into the house, they can visualize themselves living in the house. So staging is a big part of it. Whether staging is required or not depends from house to house. But definitely we have to make sure that house is presented well. And lastly, the next one, the most important thing is price. Pricing is important. Now you can do everything we want, presentation, photography, everything we want, videography, and maybe even have some celebrity come and do a video for you. At the end of the day, if the house is worth 600,000 and you list it for 1.2 million, nobody is going to buy it. Doesn't matter. Even if Amitabh Bachchan comes and sells the house, nobody is going to buy that. So the price is very important. Price is a very key parameter of marketing. And lastly, promotion. Promotion is basically the marketing, advertisements, and other things. So in real estate, the idea of promotion is to reach the last remaining potential buyer for that house. How do you do that? How do you make sure? It's not just about putting it on MLS and then it gets pulled in by Redfin and Zillow and other things. Of course, that takes care of 90% of the market for that house. But you need to reach out to somebody who may not be thinking about it. Maybe the neighbors have a friend or a family who was probably planning on moving closer to that neighbor, but was not really in the market. Maybe I go and door knock on the neighbor's house saying, hey, next week market ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. This is the flyer. ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಯಾರಿಗಾದ್ರೂ ಗೊತ್ತಿದ್ರೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪರಿಚಯ ಇದ್ದವ್ರಿಗೆ, if they're interested, we are having a special open house for neighbors only. ಬನ್ನಿ, ಸ್ನ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಕಿಡ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಆಟ ಆಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ, ವಿಲ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಸಮಥಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, who knows that triggers that neighbor to call the friend, and the friend who was not at all thinking at that time decides, okay, yeah, I like the house, I am close to you, I'll come and buy, right? Just one buyer can increase the offer price by $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. Okay, so that's the amount of money you are leaving on the side just by putting it on MLS and then saying, okay, I'll sit down, now people will come to my house. So this is a much longer discussion. I'm just giving a top level item on that. If I have to leave one golden nugget about selling a house, is the entire idea of all the things we are doing here is to reduce the buyer's decision from the desire to buy your house to actually signing the offer agreement. Between these two decision points for a buyer, there will be a lot of frictions. As a seller and a seller's team, our job is to reduce that friction. there could be a lot of friction. For example, if you're working from home and you can only show during evenings and maybe on a weekend from 1 to 5, then there may be some buyers who just want to see the house because they were in the neighborhood, right? And because your time frame is not fitting it, they may end up not seeing it. And it might be that buyer was the one who had deep pocket, was willing to put $100,000 more than the second highest offer, and you lost it buyer. So that's a friction, ability for them to come and see the house when they like. Just a couple of examples ಕೊಡ್ತಿರೋದಷ್ಟೇ. And then simple thing, anytime any buyer decides to see your house, are in their mind, before they step into the house, they're always thinking, I want this house, I want to buy this house. Now when they step into the house, one small little thing can turn off their switch. I want to buy to I don't want to buy. One small little thing. There are things we can control, but there are things we cannot control. The things we can control, we should take care of it. Meaning, I've seen homes where they've done shabby job of presentation. Carpets are unclean. Kitchen pantry open ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ when the house was vacant. ಅದು ಪ್ಯಾಂಟ್ರಿ ಐಟಮ್ಸ್ ಏನೇನು ಇಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀರೋ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲೇ ಪಾಸ್ಟಾ ಪೀಸಸ್ ಬಿದ್ದಿರುತ್ತೆ, ವಾಟ್ ಎವರ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್. Not every buyer will get offended by that and not decide not to buy, but there will always a possibility somebody will think, oh, e problem is what else problem is there in the house anta. So that's again is a friction, right? So our job as a seller or a selling team is to make sure identify those things and then remove those frictions. Of course, there are certain things you cannot remove, right? If the lighting is not enough in the house, well, I can't do anything about it. It is what it is, but there are things we can change. Okay, with that being said, I think the presentation is done. I am ready for the next Kahoot and any audience questions. And sorry for the late, I took more than what I should have.
Thank you for all. 11 Kahoot, the link kalistini. Dayavitu click on this Kahoot link, and I'm going to share my screen and the Kahoot game. So let's go to the next Kahoot question as we go forward. The next Kahoot question is, when selling a property, what is the one marketing tactic, when tweaked, will help get an offer? So reduced price is the winner. Very few people actually chose that as a marketing tactic, and renovations were put in there just to create a fun for the game. We'll announce the winner shortly. In the meanwhile, we can address a couple of questions. So I'll just stop sharing my screen and quickly address the question. The question that I heard was, are there any capital gain tax benefits on the sale of investment property? Also, if the current investment home was previously my primary residence?
Okay, this is a question for a CPA, but I'll tell based on my opinion. If it's an investment property, you will not get any, if you sell the house, you will not get any capital gain tax benefit. However, you can do what is called as a 1031 exchange and buy another property. So that way you won't pay any capital gain tax today, but it is not free of capital gain tax. You are just postponing your capital gain tax because you are transferring the gains of the sale of the current investment property to the next one you are buying as a 1031 exchange. Tomorrow, at the end of the day, you sell the other property, then definitely you will pay capital gain tax on the profit you got in the first investment and the second investment. So that's how it works. Only way you can't pay, if I remember right from the investment related webinars I attended, only way you can save capital gain tax on investment property is when you die and transfer the wealth to your children, okay, as a part of a trust.
Super, sir. Thank you. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು question ಇದೆ. is it worth investing in Bay Area right now? This is one of the hot questions of the day, right? I mean, with all of this low supply, high prices, compromise, cash flow negative, is it still worth buying it in Bay Area? That's the question.
Well, it's a very broad question. I just cannot say it's worth investing in Bay Area or not, because there are too many things that goes into it. But all I can say is I will still invest in Bay Area, because I don't think Bay Area demand, not for the real estate, but as a hub for people to come in here, is not going to decrease. Yeah, the technology industry is not going to die down. It has been growing ever since I came. It is continuing to grow no matter whether we had recession in 2000, the dot-com burst, we had recession in 2008 because of the real estate industry, and we had a short recession during COVID, right? It's not going to unsettle the Bay Area. So whether to invest or not is based on, do you think this local economy in Bay Area is going to somehow get affected, that it is not attractive anymore for people? If it is not the case, then definitely this is continue to grow. Simple answer for that is supply and demand again. In this case, supply is land. Land is limited resource. Demand is the human population. Human population is continuing to grow. As long as you have supply, which is land, which is limited, and the human population, it is ever growing, there is always going to be the imbalance. There is always going to be increase in price.
Thank you, Girish Aure. Sorry, I was facing some technical issues, but
Okay.
yeah, thank you, Girish Aure. Quickly, we want to highlight the names of the winners, and then I will hand over the baton to Vittala for a thank you note for all of you. Here are the winners of the Kahoot game. The Kahoot game winners are Vidya, Suni, and Shobha. Vidya, Suni, and Shobha, please write us an email at sponsorship@tvksangha.org, and we will coordinate the prizes from Girish towards you. Over to Vittal for the thank you note.
ಹಾಯ್, ನಾನು ವಿಠಲ ಪುತ್ತೂರ್. ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಹೇಗಿತ್ತು? ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಈ ಸೀಕ್ರೆಟ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಬೈಯಿಂಗ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಸೆಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ರಿಯಲ್ ಎಸ್ಟೇಟ್, ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮನ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ನಡೆಸಿಕೊಟ್ಟಂತ ಗಿರೀಶ್ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಅವರಿಗೆ TVKS ವತಿಯಿಂದ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಹಾಗೆಯೇ ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಮೂಡಿ ಬರಲು ಇದರ ಹಿಂದೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಜನ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಅವರನ್ನ ಒಬ್ಬೊಬ್ಬರಾಗಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಮೊದಲಿಗೆ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಕ್ಕೆ ಸೂತ್ರಧಾರರಾಗಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ MC ಆಗಿ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ನಡೆಸ್ಕೊಟ್ಟಂತ ನಮ್ಮ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟಿಂಗ್ ಟೀಮ್ ಮೆಂಬರ್ ಆದ ರೋಹಿತ್ ನಾಲ್ಪೇಟ ಅವರಿಗೆ TVKS ವತಿಯಿಂದ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಹಾಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಈ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳಿಗೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಬೆನ್ನೆಲುಬಾಗಿ ಸಹಾಯ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಂತ ನಮ್ಮ ಬೋರ್ಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಹಾಗೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಎಕ್ಸಿಕ್ಯೂಟಿವ್ ಟೀಮಿಗೆ TVKS ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಬರ್ಬೇಕಿದ್ರೆ ಇದರ ಹಿಂದೆ ಈಗ ಫ್ಲೈಯರ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದಾಗ್ಲಿ, ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಮೊಬೈಲ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಟಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ಸ್ ಕಳ್ಸೋದಾಗ್ಲಿ, ಅಥವಾ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮನ ಸ್ಮೂತ್ ಆಗಿ ನಡ್ಸ್ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಟೆಕ್ನಿಕಲ್ ಟೀಮ್ ಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಅದರ ಹಿಂದೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿದಂತ ಟೀಮ್ ಮೆಂಬರ್ಸ್, ಅವರನ್ನ ನಾನು ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಹೇಮಂತ್ ಅಂತ, ಅವರು ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನ ಸ್ಮೂತ್ ಆಗಿ ಒಬ್ಬರಿಂದ ಒಬ್ಬರಿಗೆ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೂ TVKS ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಹಾಗೆ ಕಹೂಟ್ ಗೇಮ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಪಾಲ್ಗೊಂಡ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಹಾಗೂ ವಿನ್ನರ್ಸ್ಗೆ TVKS ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಹಾಗೆ ನನ್ಗೆ ಈ ಅವಕಾಶ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಟ್ಟ ನಮ್ಮ ರಮೇಶ್ ಅವರಿಗೆ TVKS ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಕಡೆದಾಗಿ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಇಷ್ಟು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಬರೋದಿಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಕಾರಣರಾದವರು ನೀವು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಆಡಿಯನ್ಸ್. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಸೊ ಈಗ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಮುಗಿಸುವ ಸಮಯ ಬಂದಿದೆ. ನಾವು ನೀವು ಭೇಟಿಯಾಗೋಣ ಇದೇ ಏಪ್ರಿಲ್ 16ರಂದು ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ಪಾರ್ಕ್ ಸ್ಯಾನ್ರಮೋನ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ. ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಗಿರೀಶ್ ಅವರು ಏನೋ ಹೇಳಬೇಕು ಅಂತಿದ್ದಾರೆ.
ಈ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ಕೇಳಿದಾರಲ್ಲ ಚಾಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ಇಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಪಾಸಿಬಲ್ ಟು ಸೇವ್ ಇಟ್?
ಎಸ್ ಗಿರೀಶ್.
ಓಕೆ, ಅದನ್ನು ಸೇವ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಕೆಲವ್ರಿಗೆ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ, ಸೊ ಐ ವಿಲ್ ಟ್ರೈ ಟು ಆನ್ಸರ್ ದಮ್ ಲೇಟರ್.
ಶೂರ್.
ಓಕೆ, ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.
Thank you.
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು. ಬಾಯ್.